Hey guys, in today's video we will be seeing a nice game played by Leonardo Tristan, and in this game we see him playing against FIDE Master Ethan Saya in the Tile of Tuesday, and this will be a great opportunity to show you your next Blitz weapon in the Scandinavian with Queen A5. It's quite a nice system to play because you sort of get your position on the board, you have that surprise element where your opponent's not that likely to be ready for it. And the way that Tristan plays it is actually quite a unique approach that I first discovered actually back in 2014, where David Smurden showed me this fun idea in this position as part of the training for the 2014 Australian, the 2014 Olympiad, when I was part of the Australian team. And back then everybody was playing the move c6, going knight d7, and just trying to play like a normal kind of Scandinavian setup. But in that case, knight d5 is kind of annoying. We're after queen d8. Knight takes f6, either you have to accept double pawns, which is really not ideal, or you take with a queen, but then queen e2 comes and white just gets this really strong initiative in the center, and your pieces are not really well developed enough to have a playable position. So basically in this 2014, let's say, training camp before the Olympiad in Tromsø, David showed us this idea of playing bishop to b4, and at that time it had not been played by many players other than Lashnikar. But by the time I actually covered this as my main recommendation in my course, Play the Strongest Scandinavian, I know this is being played by a lot more strong players like Leonardo Tristan, in fact, and also Mamajarov and some other strong GMs. And, well, if you want to learn more about this system, you can definitely check out my full course, Play Strongest Scandinavian, in the link in the description. But for this game, it'll give you a pretty good idea of how the positions kind of play out and what to really expect. So after a3 takes, we see the first idea of bishop b4, that we are removing their knight from c3, so that d5 break is not going to be a problem for us. Fine enough in a game where I decide to play d5 anyway, but a better approach white is either to go bishop d3, though I think the arising position is still very nice for black here. You can castle short, and the white bishop is again quite badly placed, a theme that does come up a lot in these positions. So the best move black for white is actually probably to go b4, trying to grab space here and potentially, free the bishop. But again, black is doing quite fine. Bishop g4 is a nice pin. We're able to put a lot of pressure against the d4 pawn. We see once again with the bishop on c3, it's hard for white to defend it with a pawn, right? So this is going to be just quite reasonable for black. For example, h3, take, and these positions are ones that I do cover more deeply in my course, where, as I recall, I think I recommended knight takes d4 and showed a game where black won from this position, sort of playing with the good knight versus the bad bishop here. It's a bit of an unusual structure, but in some lines your knight comes to d5 and it's just very hard for white bishop to find a good target. And sometimes also even the white queenside majority becomes a bit of a weakness when we loosen up with a c5 or e5. But anyway, I talk about it more in my course, so let's see how the game played out. So after d5 here, this is actually a big mistake, and yeah, a little bit surprised that a FIDE master would make this mistake, but turns out that castle's queenside is just very, very strong here. If white takes on f6, even here, the pin is still going to be a problem, because white won't really be able to take back here, because she'll just be able to play knight e7 and just use that pin on the d file. Also, probably worth mentioning, there is a b2 pawn on as well, so tactically this is just not working for white. In a game, white plays d takes c6, but after takes cb7, queen b7, and I mean, at this point now, white's just basically sacked a queen for no real compensation. Black is basically winning at this point, and I'll just quickly show you how the game ended. Knight d5, bishop e5, f6, and I mean, you have to make sure your king is not going under a big attack. To be fair, bishop e4 might be a mistake. Probably you do want to take on b2 and just grab the material, but also just guard that bishop from an attack as well. So that's bishop e4. White does get some chances, like rook c1, and this would not be, completely clear-cut, but instead after knight d4, black does manage to re-establish control. Knight maybe looks good on c6, but doesn't really do a whole lot. Knight f4 was played, so bishop g4, f5, we are shutting out the check. White goes... Although, to be fair, white should actually do this anyway. Like, knight f4 was, in fact, a mistake in this position, because after knight e5 takes and bishop f4, like, white is getting a lot of play with opposite-colored bishops, and Bishop g2 might look crushing, but after knight f7, it's actually not so clear at all, because there's knight d6 threats and there's rook takes c7, so it's definitely a lot more messy than black would like, and a move like knight e3 would be a much more effective way to get at that knight and stop that bishop b to g4 check. Well, they can play it here, but it doesn't really matter when you've got the hidey hole for the king. Black goes bishop b5, black goes a6, and yeah, now it just is a case of white just collapsing completely. In a normal, slow time control game, I think white would just resign, but with it being Blitz, they played on a few more moves. Obviously, white can't take the bishop because of the back rank mate. Knight e7, king b8, bishop c6, and yeah, the rest was a matter of technique, as we grandmasters like to say. Take, queen a4. Nice little fork there, hitting these two guys. There we go. So rook c1 take, and finally at this point, white just resigned. So yeah, as you can see, it's pretty easy to play this system with, playing queen a5 in the Scandinavian, putting the bishop on f5 and going for bishop to b4. It's worth pointing out if they do play knight e5 that this plan might be a little bit slow, that you'll probably prefer to play c6 instead. And revert back to, to the normal Scandinavian setup with knight d7. As well, you could still put the bishop on b4 in some lines, but certainly d6 or e7 will also be very decent squares. And, I mean, that's just what you're going to face most often, right? These kind of systems. But if they play a slightly different move order, like say they play bishop c4 first, then yeah, you might choose to go bishop g4 and just kind of annoy them with the attack on the queen. If f3, you can go bishop d7 and kind of go for an e6, knight c6 setup and definitely put some pressure on the d4 pawn in this way. While there are other things they can play, but in most cases you will be going for the same setup. If they do play knight f3, you might choose to go bishop g4 and again just fire everything against the pawn on d4. So you're often going to play e5 in a move or two, and that will give you quite decent counterplay. Anyway, that's all for this video. I wish you luck with playing your next Blitz chess weapon, this queen to a5 Scandinavian. This little twist of putting the bishop on b4 rather than the usual e6, c6 setup. I have a feeling I have pretty good results for it. Even when I played this line against 2600 plus GMs, they didn't really have a clue what to do, so I doubt that your opponents will also really be at all prepared or find the best lines from white's perspective. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, do make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.